everybody, it's Kellen Brower from RacerX, back again with another race examination video. We're going to take a look at a couple things from the Thunder Valley National last weekend. Starting off talking about a little bit of an incident here that I didn't actually know about until a few days into this week. And it's actually that Chase Sexton and Ken Roczen both received a 1-point penalty for jumping on the red flashing lights right here. So you can see the red flashing lights right there. There's also some red flashing lights here on the inside, which I'll highlight. And I know that from this angle, it maybe looks a little bit tough to see this light flashing, but I did see another angle that you could actually kind of see that light flashing a lot better. But the outside light definitely is still flashing right there, and you're going to see riders jumping up ahead. So what exactly happens in this situation? Well, the rule is as follows out of the rule book. This is 2.10b, warning flags and signal lights. It says white and red stripe flag and or red and white flashing lights indicates a potentially hazardous situation on or near the racetrack in an area that is not clearly visible to oncoming riders. Riders must proceed with extreme caution, and riders must take all efforts to maintain both wheels of the motorcycle on the ground over obstacles until the rider has passed the area of concern. This flag and or flashing red and white lights take precedence over all other flags that may be displayed. Penalty for violation of the flag may include, but not be limited to, loss of championship points and or race positions as determined by the race directors. So Chase Sexton, Ken Roczen, Josh Gilbert, and Bryson Gardner were all subject to penalty here. They each lost 1 point each for jumping on that wheels on the ground light. And again, if we go back to the tape here, you'll see coming in first right there is Josh Gilbert. He's going to jump the double down the hill. Next up, right behind that is Chase Sexton, and then Bryson Gardner between Sexton and Roczen jumps it as well. And then Roczen also jumps it at the end before Eli Tomac and Grant Harlan at the back of this train both roll it. And then it seems that the lights went off after that. So a very interesting situation right there, but the lights were on, and the rule book is pretty clear about how this situation works. So Roczen and Sexton both getting a 1-point penalty when all was said and done from Thunder Valley. So jumping ahead a little bit after that infraction occurred, and I wanted to talk about Eli Tomac and Ken Roczen's incredible battle in the second 450 moto for what was at the time second place in the race, and Eli Tomac was just trying to bolster his chances at winning the overall with a 1-2 instead of a 1-3. They went back and forth. First, Roczen reacted to Tomac making a pass by cutting back up the inside. Then he slowly kind of blocks Tomac's inside line into this first corner the very next lap, and then a lap later kind of does it even more dramatically so. Tomac gets a great drive out of the inside of this corner, tries to go to the outside again, but Roczen just kind of slowly rolls up to the top of the hill, checks his inside, makes sure Tomac didn't cut back underneath, and just runs him to the edge of the track. Now, this culminated in both of them trying to make, or Tomac trying to make this pass on Roczen around the outside off the top of the hill. This was with 3 to go, comes down and was a little bit further ahead than the second attempt, but Roczen just kind of nudges him out of the way to keep his second position. And then a little bit later on after that, again, both these guys just pushing so hard. 1 lap later with 2 laps to go. Again, Tomac's going to try the same thing, just dives it in late, trying to hook this inside rut, but Roczen is just going to nudge him out. And at that point, it seems like Tomac kind of gave up a little bit, rips a tear off, and is just like, I'm going to settle for third because it's still good enough for the overall. However, Chase Sexton on the final lap of the race is going to get kicked sideways, lay it over, and that is just enough for Ken Roczen, his teammate, to sneak through, take the race lead, and eventually take the overall victory as well with a 2-1 performance. And this right here for Sexton is just on the brakes, kind of lands in a little bit of soft stuff, but really just because he got kicked sideways and got cross-runted, it sent his balance off to the inside of the racetrack. And I mean, he would have crashed like that pretty much any other lap if he did that exact same maneuver. So really frustrating for him that it's obviously the last lap of the race, maybe a little bit of a loss of focus. But for Roczen, it was huge because, like I said, does go on to win the moto. The 2-1 performance enough for Roczen to win Thunder Valley and pull up a little bit closer to his teammate in the championship. The final thing I wanted to talk about from the 450 class at Thunder Valley was Antonio Cairoli ripping 2 consecutive hole shots, his third sequence of hole shots in a row after he hole shot the second moto at Hangtown. And I was trying to dissect these a little bit and try to determine what it was that Cairoli did. That was the second moto that we just saw. Here's the first moto, which he was able to rip the whole shot a little bit bigger than the second moto, just kind of got to the corner first and controlled it all the way through, whereas the second moto, Sexton was right up on his inside. And I slowed it down to kind of watch his body language and form off the gate. And what I can tell is that if you look at other riders around him, a lot of like moving parts, just kind of like leaning back and forth, trying to get some traction to the rear tire. But Cairoli's always been really good about stationary positioning on the bike and even kind of tucking a little bit lower. So in that first moto, you could, or in the second moto, you could kind of see it right there. The first moto, really good indication of that. Look at how stable he is all the way up the hill, and then even kind of tucks down behind the bars to get a little bit more rear wheel traction all the way up to the top of the hill. Affords him ample opportunity to get to the corner first, and late braking on top of that to get to the inside line. Cairoli has always been a pretty good starter, but it's been cool to see how that kind of form carries over to the US side here in the Nationals.
I want to remind everybody that this video is presented by OnX Off-Road. Know where to go with the #1 off-road GPS app, access 500,000 plus miles of trails and roads, open dates, and public lands. Download the onX Off-Road app today.
Now, in the 250 class, it was Levi Kitchen who won his first career 250 moto in that first moto, went on to finish 3rd overall on the day, but I dissected a couple things from his riding that I wanted to talk about. So he's a bit of a taller guy, and sometimes we see these guys use their body to their advantage, but one thing that's peculiar about it to me is every time I see clips of slow motion of Levi Kitchen, it never seems like he's over the center of the bike, even though he's a really big guy. He's always leaning kind of a little bit off or a little bit, you know, to one direction or the other, and sometimes even dramatically so. So that first little clip, you kind of saw how much kind of back and forth swaying he does. Look at this, like coming into the corner, leaning hard to the inside and letting the bike kind of carry into the rut, and then just continuing to kind of move little minute movements to just kind of make sure that he's got enough rear wheel traction and keeps the bike planted. But this last clip does a tremendous job of explaining what I'm talking about. So as he comes through this rut right here, look at how far off the right side of the bike he's going to lean and just let the bike kind of follow the rut, but he's always so balanced with this kind of maneuver. And it's really kind of a unique riding style to watch, because really only the real tall guys have the ability to do this. Like, look at how he's basically like leaning 2 full ruts over and letting the bike carry over, and that it still has, you know, plenty of momentum to roll forward. And for him, it was plenty for him to go on and win his first career moto, which was really cool to see. So next up, I want to talk about something really interesting, and that is in both the first 250 and second 250 motos, Jett Lawrence made basically the exact same pass on Justin Cooper on the same part of the racetrack here at the bottom of the hill before the big uphill triple. So the first moto, he passes him right there, and you could kind of barely see what happened, but the second moto gives us some insight maybe to how he did it. So he's going to tuck to the far inside of that long sweeper, eventually leads to the outside, and by the time he's there, Cooper doesn't have the chance to cut back over and defend the line, and I think that's pretty much exactly how he did it in the first moto as well. And that's just, you know, good racecraft to use the lines to your advantage in the corner. But was so peculiar about this pass is not only was it in the same location of the track, it was for the same position, second place in the race. It was on the same lap of the race in both motos, and almost at the exact same time in both motos too. So really interesting kind of set of circumstances there. And lastly, I wanted to talk about this contact at the beginning of the second moto between Seth Hammaker and Nate Thrasher, because they both went down pretty hard, and Thrasher did not finish the moto. So there was a lot of talking points here about who was at fault and what exactly happened here to cause this. Thrasher, fortunately, is going to be back to racing this weekend, even though it looked like he may have damaged his shoulder in the crash. So if we slow this down and kind of highlight it again, you can see from this drone view, which I love, you can see the different angles of the ruts and how everything's going. You can see by this point of the corner, contact is inevitable unless one of them backs out. The ruts are going towards each other. They're just going to get a little bit, you know, faster through the corner. And I think Thrasher just now at the last minute realizes that Hammaker's coming all the way up to the inside right there, and it's a little bit too little too late. You could say maybe it's too early to try to make a pass that aggressive, but sometimes these guys on those first couple laps of the race don't exactly know what the hook is in the rut or where exactly it goes. And I think more or less this is a racing incident. Two guys that were just trying to figure out their kind of wits end on the first lap of the race. Unfortunate they both went down, but good to hear that Thrasher ended up being okay, and he'll be back this weekend.